Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi. This is a series in Hadith sciences, and this series is set out to map out Hadith sciences for us so that we get a bird's eye view of the science. Many times what's happening is that we don't know how to map out our knowledge. We don't have an overall picture of the knowledge that we're studying, specifically the science that we're studying. And so we get caught up in this particular issue or that particular issue without understanding how it is that different topics within that science that are being studied interrelate to one another. I wanted to say that Hadith sciences has a number of different objectives, but what's sufficient to be said here for the sake of clarity is that one of the primary objectives is to determine the soundness of the text itself, whether it's sound or unsound. The highest level of hadith knowledge is said to be to understand the text and to be able to act upon it, to put it into practice. لِنُوَدِّفِ النَّص, as they say, to employ the text in action. But that can't take place and accrue to us benefit, bring to us benefit, if we were to act upon that text in the event that that text is not sound. Put it clearly, using a textual evidence, hadith textual evidence, that's attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, and we find it not to be sound, the use of it is not going to bring us any benefit as far as otherworldly reward. It may bring us insight of another kind, but as far as the practice of the deen is concerned, in practicing the deen as a means to come close to Allah, the text won't bring us any benefit. And so we have three views, three glances that we take when we look at a hadith text. The first glance, the first view that we take with regard to the text is how it is that it came to us. And in that, we have two categorizations with regard to how it is that it came to us. Both of them speak to the amount of people that narrated the hadith, how many people narrated to us. And so we group the number of people that narrated the hadith into two types of groups. We're not going to get into that right now. But the first glance that we take with regard to a hadith is how is it that the hadith came to us? How many people related it? And that's what we call بِاعْتِبَارِ وُصُولِهِ إِلَيْنَا, from that angle, from the angle of how is it that it was transmitted to us. The second is بِاعْتِبَارِ الْقَبُولِ وَعَدَمِهِ, the view that we take after we determine how many people related the hadith to us is it acceptable or is it not acceptable, right? And that's where we get into classifying the hadith according to strength. And there's three classifications in that regard, and we'll pause on that moment. And then lastly, بِاعْتِبَارِ الْعَمْلِ بِهِ وَعَدَمِهِ. And that is after we determined that the hadith came to us by X amount of people. Then after we determine whether the hadith is acceptable or not acceptable as far as strength is concerned, then we have to determine if it's acceptable, can we act upon it or not act upon it. And in that regard, we have 4 studies that pertain to that issue of acting upon a hadith or not being able to act upon that hadith which is determined to be sound. Until the next session, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.